Yeah, I tell you, I used to have nightmares with Muggsy.
Muggsy is a great testimony to the fact that speed kills.
And I was a huge Muggsy fan.
You always wanted to know where Muggsy was.
He's small, but at the same time, man, he had the heart of a lion.
He was the smallest guy on the court, but he played like the biggest.
He was a Superman.
Tough as nails, too.
His competitive spirit, bigger than everyone's.
We trusted him with anything.
Pound for pound, one of the best to ever do.
Quick as lightning and twice as exciting.
Someone that small in the land of giants, the inspiration is just obvious.
If people haven't heard of Muggsy Bogues, I don't know where they've been.
Muggsy Bogues takes it away. Great play by Muggsy Bogues.
Amazing when you watch him play.
It's nice to hear all those accolades, but those weren't the words I heard growing up. There were a lot of doubters, a lot of haters, but that negativity just fueled me more than they would ever know.
In the concrete maze of East Baltimore, where boarded-up homes lined streets like broken teeth, and ambition was too often stolen by circumstance, a boy emerged with a dream as tall as the buildings that towered over him. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues was born on January 9, 1965, into a world that didn't give free passes to anyone, especially not kids who stood under 5 feet tall. In a city defined by poverty, violence, and survival, there was no room for fantasy. You either made it out or you didn't, and most didn't. Baltimore in the 1970s was hard. The factories that had once fueled the city's economy were closing. The jobs were vanishing. The buildings were crumbling. Crime rose like steam from the sidewalk, and the future seemed like a luxury no one could afford. Muggsy's childhood was shaped by this reality. Raised in the Lafayette Court's housing projects, he quickly learned how to navigate a world where simply walking to school meant crossing battle lines. But what he lacked in stature, he made up for in speed, in grit, and in heart. At just 5 years old, Muggsy faced a trauma most never experienced. A neighborhood altercation turned violent when a man opened fire with a shotgun. Young Tyrone was hit. Buckshot tore into his arms and legs. He nearly died. The physical wounds eventually healed, but the memory remained etched in his body forever. And yet, even that didn't stop him. Even then, the idea of quitting was foreign to him, because when you've looked death in the face before your 6th birthday, a tall defender in a basketball game doesn't seem so scary. He was always the smallest kid on the block and on the court, and yet he always wanted the ball. The older kids would laugh, call him names, and make jokes. They'd tell him to sit down, tell him he wasn't cut out for the game. But Muggsy was never interested in permission. With 2 milk crates and a handsaw, he and his friends built makeshift hoops in alleyways. That was his arena. The ball wasn't just a toy, it was a weapon, a shield, and a tool of transformation. His mother was his bedrock, a woman of immense strength and quiet wisdom. She saw something in her son long before the world did. She told him to ignore the noise. "They don't know how big your heart is," she would say. "They don't know your fight." That message became his fuel. While others grew taller, Muggsy grew tougher. He didn't try to play like the bigger kids. He learned to play smarter, quicker, sharper. His understanding of angles, spacing, and anticipation became lethal. In middle school and high school, he began to turn heads, not because he dunked, but because he controlled the game. His court vision was elite, his defensive instincts were terrifying, and his leadership, unshakable. At Dunbar High School, he joined a team that would go down in history. Led by coach Bob Wade, Muggsy, alongside Reggie Lewis, David Wingate, and Reggie Williams, helped build a dynasty. That team went 59-0 across 2 seasons. 4 of its players would make the NBA. But none stood shorter or taller in spirit than Muggsy. Practices at Dunbar were brutal. Sandbags, bricks, non-stop conditioning. Wade didn't go easy on anyone, especially not Muggsy. He demanded discipline and accountability. Muggsy responded with everything he had. He became the team's engine, calling plays, directing traffic, picking pockets. He played as if the court belonged to him, and in a way, it did. Despite the high school success, major colleges were skeptical. Coaches admired his tenacity but couldn't imagine him thriving in a physical ACC environment. But Wake Forest took a chance. And once again, Muggsy proved the doubters wrong. As a freshman, he had to fight for minutes, but by his sophomore season, he was the heartbeat of the Demon Deacons. He averaged double-digit points, dished out assists like a veteran, and terrorized opposing guards on defense. By the time he was a junior, he was first-team All-ACC, leading the conference in assists and steals. Fans adored him, players respected him, coaches feared him, and in 1986, he earned a spot on the U.S. team for the FIBA World Championships. Among NBA prospects and international legends, Muggsy held his ground. When he shut down Croatian superstar Dražen Petrović, a player 8 inches taller and a global scoring sensation, people stopped laughing. They started believing. Then came the NBA draft. In 1987, with the 12th overall pick, the Washington Bullets selected Muggsy Bogues. He was 5'3" and the shortest player in NBA history. The moment stunned the basketball world. It wasn't just that he got drafted, it was where. First round, ahead of All-Americans, ahead of taller, flashier names. It was a statement, a defiant, unflinching statement. His rookie season was a blur of media appearances and court battles. He played alongside 7'7" Manute Bol, the NBA's tallest player, creating one of the most unforgettable images in league history. But for Muggsy, this wasn't about gimmicks. He was there to compete, and compete he did. In 1988, the newly formed Charlotte Hornets selected Muggsy in the expansion draft. That's where legend met home. Charlotte loved him from the moment he laced up. He was the underdog in a city full of them. Fans wore his jersey like armor. They saw themselves in him. In return, Muggsy gave them everything he had, on and off the court. The Hornets became electric. Their style was fast, fun, unrelenting, and at the center of it all was Muggsy. He didn't just set plays, he dictated tempo. His defense was a masterclass in anticipation. His assists were pure poetry, and his leadership, the kind that couldn't be taught. In 1993, the Hornets made the playoffs and stunned the Boston Celtics. It was a turning point, not just for the franchise, but for Muggsy's legacy. He had gone from a mocked draft pick to the general of a playoff team. He averaged nearly 10 assists that season and continued to rank among the league leaders in steals. Every night, he stepped onto the floor against players a foot taller and won battles with sheer heart. He played 14 seasons in the NBA, over 850 games, nearly 7,000 assists, more than 1,300 steals. No shortcuts, no excuses, no backing down. After retiring in 2001, Muggsy didn't fade away. He leaned into what mattered most, giving back. He established the Muggsy Bogues Family Foundation, dedicated to uplifting youth through education, athletics, and opportunity. He became a motivational speaker, a mentor, a coach. His message was simple: believe in yourself, even when no one else does. He coached high school ball, served in the front office, ran camps, and stayed involved in the community that raised him. He reminded young players that talent might open a door, but character, discipline, and heart would keep it open. He raised a family of his own, instilling the same values that carried him out of poverty and into greatness: respect, resilience, responsibility. His children didn't grow up in the Lafayette projects, but they grew up understanding where he came from. For many, he wasn't just a basketball player. He was a symbol that being different doesn't mean being less. To this day, Muggsy Bogues remains the shortest player to ever play in the NBA. But if you ask his teammates, his coaches, or the millions of fans who watched him, he was one of the biggest. Not because of what he did, but because of what he represented. Courage, belief, grit, grace. Because sometimes, the most powerful force on the court isn't size, it's will. And Muggsy, his will changed the game.
This kid can really change the momentum of a game.
What a steal by Muggsy Bogues!
Great play by the little guy.
Oh, what a pass by Bogues! Is he exciting? Yeah!